And there we go. Excuse me. So yeah, hey, we're going to talk about the platforms today, which ones to use, and which ones are, the advantages and disadvantages of all the major, what you would call, I guess, an OTA, online travel agency. I've always kind of been like, why do we call them that? Because the travel agency like books your, like your dinner plans and things. And so I don't know, but they call them OTAs, and also known as platforms. And we're going to discuss the differences and the ups and downs of all of them. So first of all, I do want to mention that there are a ton of them now. There's little guys out there like TripAdvisor and Flipkey, which they might work very well for somebody. I did dabble in them in the early days, and found that they weren't really anything that I wanted to mess around with. So I really don't have too much experience with the little guys. I have heard rumors with them having trouble integrating with softwares and things like that, and maybe not even being able to in some cases, which can make our lives more difficult. So guys, does anybody here have experience with like a Flipkey? I tried them very little years ago, but nobody.
No, I haven't messed with them at all.
Okay, cool. I did sign up for all of them when I first started in this business, but that was a long time ago, and there was only like 3. And I quickly realized that the big dogs were where I was going to go with it, which we'll get to that here in just a second. Of course, then there's booking.com, which is a very popular website for booking vacations, and it does seem to get a little bit of hate on the internet here and there. The thing that I personally love about booking is that if you go to book a vacation and you go to like Kayak, or Priceline, it'll pull from booking.com, and as of now it will not pull from Airbnb. May pull from Expedia, maybe, which is obviously they own VRBO, so you might be able to get some VRBO action in there as well. I don't really know. I guess it's probably because the last time I was looking for a vacation, it was like 99. I was looking for cheap, and the houses were probably at the very bottom, but I did notice some booking.coms on there, so that's pretty cool. Anybody use it or have an experience with it? I did. Well, before I turn it over to you guys, I did use it for a while, and I found that it was kind of a pain in the rear end, and it was just not really for me. But this was years ago, and to my knowledge, I think you will get a few bookings from it, but it's not something I'm using right now. Anybody here have any experience with it? Again, no.
I did try. I did recently sign up for booking.com. I wanted to give it a try. And then, like you said, there were a couple areas where I needed some help. And so then as I started doing the internet research, then I ran into people, I think even Chuck, some of them on there saying how maybe they were getting 3 or 4 a year. And so I just kind of decided it wasn't worth my time at that time. I may check it out again in the future, but I started it, but I never activated it because, like you said, on the internet, there's not too much extremely positive towards it yet.
Yeah, but like I said, I do like the fact that it pulls in together with the search engines, which is great. And just to touch on that subject a little bit, Google announced in the spring. Nice chat comment there. Google announced in the spring that they are going to be getting involved in the space, and what we think is that is going to be very similar to what we're talking about here with Priceline and Kayak. In other words, if you want to book a flight today, what easy thing to do would be to go to Google and type in where you want to go, because there's Google Flights. And when they first made that announcement in the spring, everybody said, "Oh my goodness, Google's going to be competing with Airbnb and VRBO." And no, we don't think that that's the case. We think that Google's going to simply pull from the OTAs and kind of try and put everything in one place, which is a great idea. And then eventually, I think we might even end up with we recently saw that Zumper collected a lot of money to get into the short-term space. Again, we're not exactly sure where they're going to take that, but if anybody has long-term rental experience, you'll know, and Tim, I know you've got a bunch of long-terms. What you can do when you're trying to rent a long-term is that you can post it on this website called Zumper, and it will then cross-post your listing to all of the listing websites out there, such as Zillow and Apartments.com and HotPads and Trulia, as opposed to having to go to all these websites individually and post your house 100 times, you post it on Zumper, you pay a small fee, and it will post it to all of those websites at one time. Very cool thing to have in long term. It's a pretty common tool that you see all the time in long term. And Zumper did just like in the last few weeks announced that they're going to get into the short term space. I did read the article. It didn't look like it was going to be an exact version of the long term rental Zumper, but it was a little vague. So I'm interested.
Some sort of central data collection would be awesome on that.
100%.
That would be nice.
Yep,
Can
I'm
you-
interested to see where they go with that. Go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
Can you do minimum different long term, like 3 months, 6 months on there at this time? Or like some of the Florida people who maybe want to attract snowbirds to their Airbnbs?
Yeah, interesting idea there, but no. Well, the long-term rental Zumper is literally, just for putting up for long-term 12-month leases.
Okay.
The new short-term Zumper is not out yet. We don't even know what it's going to do. How would the Zumper thing any different than a PMS that works as a channel manager? Good question. How would the Zumper thing be any different than a PMS that works as a channel manager? So, as of right now, for the most part, there are exceptions, like Guesty for Hosts does integrate directly with Airbnb, and you can change things on your Airbnb listing from guestyforhosts.com. The difference there, Julie, is that, and if you're available, feel free to hop on. But the difference is this would be like, it's hard to explain.
You build your listing on Zumper.
On
Not
Zumper.
like on your right now, the current platform management, you build your individual listings, and then that just connects them and does some interfacing, where with Zumper, you truly build the whole thing on there, and then it pushes it out to all the platforms. So you don't go into Airbnb and VRBO and do all that separately. So
Would it do messaging or would it?
well, I mean, in the long-term world's different, but who knows what they could. I mean, it'd be interesting to see where that could go. I don't know where, like Luke said, they haven't really said a whole lot of what they're going to do. But the big difference, to answer the question is you're building one listing and pushing in the data out. It's honestly, it's similar to like an MLS. Like when you put a listing up on the MLS, it kicks it out to Zillow and all that stuff. It collects all the data and pushes it out. It's just a central data collection agency, if you will. So.
Yes, and Julie's saying OwnerRez will let me build a listing and pushes it out to a zillion things, but that is pushing the same listing to all those different places. Zumper is actually creating a Zillow listing for me, if that makes sense, Julie, right? I think that's the disconnect there, but yeah, we'll see where that goes. The OwnerRez people are coming out of the woodwork already. This is not about property management software today, by the way. We will have that call in the near future. All the management softwares, we're going to get together and go head to head and tell everybody why we love our softwares, and OwnerRez people will always win that conversation. I think they just have to win. But anyway, so yeah, booking.com, it is what it is. And I feel like there is some progress there. It seems to be getting better over time, but again, got to kind of decide if it's something you want to deal with or not, which leads us to basically the two big ones, right? So, and just to give a broad overview, you got VRBO, which has been around. A lot of people don't realize it's been around for a very long time, 27, 28 years now, based originally out of Denver. They are now owned by Expedia, and they're publicly traded, of course, and it's a very large company, an $11 billion company that's been around basically since the internet was created. And then you got Airbnb, which is a little bit of a newcomer. They started in 2007. They kind of gained traction in 2011. It was a Super Bowl commercial that, in most people's opinion, put Airbnb on the map. And it just took off from there. Before we get into this, I do want to say that we love both of these websites very much. They've changed my life, and appreciate everything they've done for me and my family. And I can't even imagine how hard they've worked to get those companies to where they are today. But let's go over some little differences with the two big guys. First of all, do I need guys? I just ask all of you: do I need more than one? Should I be using all of them? Should I be using just Airbnb and VRBO? What are your thoughts?
Hard yes for me. You know, I started off with just Airbnb until Luke hit me with a 2x4 and said, "What are you doing, man?" You know, just like anything else, it's kind of, you know, there's a lot of reasons to have both, but you know, the easiest thing is you don't want all your eggs in one basket. You know, I mean, and you're ignoring a massive part of the market if you just pick one. And so there's just a lot of reasons to do at least two, and those are the two biggies. So.
Yep.
Zeke, I'm going to call on you. I know Zeke is he's more of a strong silent type. We mostly have him here because he's so good looking, but a little bit newer in the hosting area. I know you got at least one property. Are you on both there, or what are we doing?
I am on both. I get a lot more traction on Airbnb. You know, I've worked hard to try to get traction on VRBO. I wish it was more 50-50. You know, I don't know. This is just a theory that I have, and you might be able to tell me more about it, but I feel like VRBO caters to experienced hosts more so than Airbnb. On Airbnb, when you're new, it's gonna, you know, push your listing to the top, help you get some traction. But I feel like VRBO caters to its established hosts.
Interesting way to put that. It is true. I believe that is true.
Yeah, that's just a theory I have.
I think once you get any traction in VRBO, you can take off, but you have to get that first couple. You have to. When we had 3 or 4 properties listed at the same time, one of them was gangbusters, and then the rest were ghosts on VRBO. But once somebody got over to that second one, it started just VRBO, and the other 2 were completely ghosts. So you've got to get that. I mean, it's so noticeable, and they're not linked. Like, it's not for, I think, right on VRBO, like they're easier to find because they have a number. So your guest, you could give your guest like, hey, or, you know, people advertise outside of their properties, VRBO, this number, but like, it's not like, hey, this person has so many reviews, stay at one of their other properties as much as VRBO is, from what I can tell. So those other properties have to totally fight on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's very much tortoise and hare. Airbnb is quick and moves fast and likes to push a lot of traffic to new hosts, whether it's to suck them in, really, which is great. You know, when we're brand new, it's exciting and we're nervous, and it's like, well, am I going to get any bookings? And then all of a sudden, Airbnb swoops in and it kind of loads you up. And it's a good feeling when you're new, but the turtle comes wandering over and says, wait a minute, this calendar's already full. I'm just going to move on to the next guy. And then next thing you know, you're like 8 months deep and you've never even cared about VRBO because Airbnb kept you busy. And I think that's what we want to avoid is saying, you know, I'm an Airbnb person and I love it, which is great. It's great, but I don't want you to get sucked in and just forget about what is, you know, I mean, it's an $11 billion company, and that seems to be pretty easy to do when you're in Zeke's position or where he was recently with,
you know,
being
to the consumer, a lot of them, I don't want to say they don't know the difference, but it's like some people have heard of one and never heard. It's like almost the same to them. You know, it's like I'm using the wrong thing here, but Kleenex napkin or whatever you want to call it. It's just like it's the same thing, you know. And you know, I've had similar experience. It took a little longer to get VRBO rolling, but once it is, it trucks along hard. And so I love them both. And you know, again, I want everybody's attention, and to get everybody's attention, it's both.
And like you said, it is, when you said everybody's, that you don't want to like neglect or not market to someone, they do seem to be completely different clientele. Like they don't know that the other one exists, and you just, it's completely different clientele. So if you do just go with one, you're ignoring a whole nother population.
Well, let's slide right into that then. Let's talk about the differences in the clientele and I guess the quality level of each. I guess high overview, it seems that the Airbnb is a little bit more maybe on the hip side and maybe a little bit of a younger crowd and a little more techie. What are you guys finding in general of, you know, as far as the clientele and I guess maybe overall quality, if there is a difference between the two?
My VRBO guests are usually older. And honestly, they're usually my worst guests. They're the ones that are calling me, trying to figure out how to figure out the Roku stick, you know, all that good stuff.
I was going to say the same thing. I wouldn't say they're bad guests,
yeah,
but they're definitely, I would agree, less techy. So we've had to actually adjust some of our messages that go out to VRBO people, because there are definitely more remote control questions there. But they're respectful, good people, they're good guests. It's just they need a little bit more. I don't want to say hand holding, just they need help with technology more. So.
And when you say, give me a second here, Leanne says she's 75% VRBO on her Smokies listing. That's fantastic. Leanne, we're glad you're having success. And guys, we do want to encourage questions. If you have questions or if you want us to cover different issues between any of the platforms, keep them coming. But Zeke, when you say worse guest, not as good guests, you just mean like maybe, you don't mean that they're like flooding your toilets and leaving your carpet a mess.
Yeah, no,
mean,
they're not bad guests. They just, they message me a lot more than some of my other guests.
Or they call a lot more because they don't know how to message.
Yeah, I like the guests that check in and check out and I don't even know they're there,
Yeah, that is true, Holly. They do tend to try and find that phone number, and because a lot of times, and you see that a lot on VRBO too. They'll send like a second inquiry because they can't find their actual reservation.
Yes.
And well, how do you guys handle that? What I do is I'm like, hey, no problem, because you have to respond, otherwise it dings you on your algorithms. So I'll just, if my auto message takes care of it, that's cool too. But I'll go find their actual real reservation. I'll be like, hey guys, you're over here.
Yep.
It's kind of funny to hear it from other people.
We'll do a quick response on the inquiry thing, and then go back and we'll tell them we're going to respond on the original thing, and then go back to the original thing and try and reel that in.
I had one a couple days ago. This girl messaged me and she said, hey, I'm staying on these dates. It wasn't even the right girl. And I went and found the reservation and messaged her. I was like, do you know this person? She's like, yeah, it's my sister. And I'm like, oh, she must be the planner of the group. And I said, just, shoot her my guidebook, because that guidebook is great for other guests besides the host, or besides the host of the guest group, right? So they're hosting the group. It's a wrong word in this context, but if they can shoot that over to their sister or whoever else is coming, and hopefully they can get an idea of what they're actually coming to. But yeah, I think, just a high level overview there as far as guests between the two platforms, and we also get it seems a younger crowd on Airbnb. So maybe, because we always have this review issue. People say, well, I can't get this guest on VRBO to leave a review. Nobody likes to leave reviews on VRBO, and everybody leaves a review on Airbnb, and good on Airbnb for making that happen. Because as a business owner, anybody that owns a business or even on what we're doing here on short term, it's difficult to get somebody to leave a review on the internet. And on Airbnb, man, they just come in. It's like you can't stop those reviews.
I think some of that is generational too. Going back to the younger, techier, I don't want to even say guest, just customer, they're more attuned. They're all Amazon shoppers, and they're all used to leaving reviews for everything. Where my parents don't leave reviews for anything. So
100%.
I think that's part of it on between the two platforms. I think it's just part of who your customer is, and you just gotta cater to that customer.
I'll have a lot though. What Zeke was saying, the opposite on VRBO, where I don't know if they don't have to call me, then I don't know if they've gotten there or not, because they really they are old, they're not. So I don't know. They come and they go, and I have to be like, hey, are you alive? Like that type of thing, because they don't do a lot of communication. They're more
likely to fix your toilet than they are to complain about it.
Exactly. Yes. And when I do, sometimes I'll call and be like, hey, how was everything? Oh, you know what? Your can opener was broke, so we bought another one, and I'm like, okay, but they were never going to tell me. They never, I don't hear from them very often unless it is a technical issue.
But on the other side of the coin, if we don't hear from an Airbnb guest, it's almost like we get a little nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad review coming.
Yeah. We didn't hear anything from you. We hope you enjoyed it. 2 stars. You suck.
Do you guys see more traction per market? Like I've heard that beach markets are more popular with VRBO guests for some reason. Is that true? Some of you guys that own in both markets?
When I bought mine, the lady, our first one, that's all she did was VRBO. And for the first 6 months, all we did was Airbnb, and it was fine. And, but still, we're pretty 50-50 down there. We've got 2 of them going down there, and they're pretty 50-50.
Holly, you own in both markets too? Yes, or beach and mountain?
Yeah, no, not
Okay.
yet, the mountain. But yeah, that for
Just
me, the
mountains.
mountain was mostly VRBO. Like even as you're just driving around looking, everybody has their signs out with their VRBO numbers. And a lot of it, I think, is also the older owners that have been with them for decades and really prefer them and don't like Airbnb themselves. So
I agree there. 100. The old school hosts are definitely, they lean more towards VRBO. And I mean, a lot of times you go by, like Tim said, you go buy one of these things and it's only on VRBO, and that person, you know, they don't even Airbnb or what it is or like it. And it's just because it's a generational thing. So
That's like a
but at the
Tesla.
end of the
to them.
day,
They have no idea.
it's like, what now?
A Tesla to them. They don't.
Oh, yeah.
It's like newfangled electric car or something. So.
Yeah, totally. And so, but you may bring up an excellent point. Is it market specific? We hear that all the time. Oh, I'm in this market, it's all Airbnb. Oh, I'm in this market, it's all VRBO. I disagree there. I really do think that it is host specific, not market specific. And if you may be dealing in a market where many of the hosts are old school, like when I first came into the market into the Smokies in the middle 20 teens, there was no Airbnb. I mean, there's literally none. I have the two oldest Airbnbs. I haven't figured out a better way to say that yet. In the Smokies, because back when we started there, it was just all VRBO. And if you were to go in then, they would have said, no, this is a VRBO market. Nobody uses it. Well, why? You know? Well, that's just what we do here. Well, let me throw this on Airbnb and see how it goes. And that's a pretty good way for you to crush it. So if you're going into a market where you see no ways, you put that thing on Airbnb, you can crush it. Same thing with VRBO. You go in there, it's all Airbnb, nobody's on VRBO, you go knock it out of the water on the other platform. So not market specific, at least in my opinion.
is VRBO worldwide? I've never even looked.
The internet's a big place.
yes, it is. That's a good
Yeah.
question. I also don't know that, Holly. I don't.
What was your question?
Is VRBO worldwide? I would assume so.
I mean, you know, Airbnb, you have all their rules and regulations for China and this, you know, but I don't know if VRBO or if it's still home away in other countries. I don't know.
It says right here on online that VRBO is in 190 countries, Airbnb is in 200.
Okay, so pretty close to the same. And you make an excellent point, Holly. We didn't even mention HomeAway, which it used to be. VRBO and HomeAway were separate companies. They bought, which one of them bought the other one, and they became one company. But they did actually have two separate websites for a while. In other words, you could have your listing on VRBO. It would push it to both VRBO and HomeAway. But I think it was a couple years ago, and it was very quiet when they did this. They just kind of did away with HomeAway altogether, and now it's all just VRBO.com. So excellent point. In case anybody ever hears the term HomeAway come up, that's exactly what they're talking about. So speaking of, let's talk websites here. I think there's going to be a clear-cut winner on this one. Who's got a better website? And also we'll throw app in there and why.
Airbnb.
Yeah, I'll say Airbnb is the winner there. It's just it's more intuitive.
A lot more user friendly.
Yes. I mean, it's no secret that Airbnb smokes it in that category. Their website is great. I've no complaints there, never have. Their app is wonderful.
I will say the people that like VRBO, which again, we've kind of laid that out, they are the type that they like it and use it because it doesn't change, you know, and if they change anything, they all get upset, you know, and, you know, I've dealt with friends that are VRBO lovers and they get all, you know, you send them Airbnb. And again, it's like you're trying to have them drive a spaceship, you know, but to me, hands down is Airbnb is for most people is better. So.
I agree. It does occasionally feel like VRBO never ever changes anything, and Airbnb almost changes things that didn't need to be changed sometimes. But you know, there's a big difference there, specifically between the two major platforms. But I think everybody's going to agree, for the most part, unless you're old school, like Tim said, that Airbnb's tech in general is definitely superior. The VRBO app is very limited on things that you can do. I find myself often jumping over to the desktop because you can't, there's a lot of stuff you can't do on the VRBO app.
Yeah.
But you got to get over that.
Even the desktop is clunky as an owner. You know,
It
it's
is.
you get a bunch of listings on there. It's like, how do I even get to my listing? You know, and,
I don't know if you guys do either, but I get kicked out like all the time. It's like, you have to change your password. I'm like, what?
Yep, and the website crashes constantly, but you got to get over that. You know, I hear people all the time, well, their website sucks. I don't use it. It's a waste of time. And it's just, it is what it is. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I'm making money using VRBO. So I got to learn, you know, we've got to adapt. We're selling a product. We're using their platform to do so. And without them, you know, as of today, late 2022, we have to use them, you know, so, and I'm happy to use them. A lot of people, we'll get into off platform here in a minute, but I'll save that for the end actually here. All right, screw it. Let's slide into off platform. Why not? Guys, is it worth it to create a website and try and draw traffic? And again, if we had an owner-as person on this call, this might be a little different, and we don't, and we are going to save the property management softwares for another call. But is it worth it to build a website and try and draw people to your, you know, off platform for whatever reason? And what reason would I do that?
I think it's getting to be more so important, more so than it was before. So, but it for me anyways, because I am older, it's time consuming.
I agree. I agree with Holly. It's more so than it used to be, but I still say, you know, what the platforms charge, like if you're running a big branded business or whatever, if you look at what they charge as your marketing budget, you know, because that's really what they're doing is they're putting your product out there for the consumers to get to it. What they charge is nothing, you know, and when you look at your time that it takes to create a brand and create, you know, traction to your website. And let's just be honest, if we all do that, if everybody that has a short-term rental creates their own website, then you just got to see these little individual websites, and it makes it very difficult for people to land on how they land on you, which it all comes down to marketing and SEO. And then you're doing all that stuff that you're going to start spending more and more money on, that they do that for us. So I think do I think it's worth it? Yeah, I think it's worth it to have some amount of direct, but I think it's a good balance to use them as well. So.
See, what I don't like is when people create their off-platform website and they spend a lot of time on it, because especially when they're brand new, because, you know, maybe they heard a horror story or something like that. And next thing you know, they spent, you know, hours and hours, 100 hours on this thing, and to get what, 5 bookings a year or something. And to me, you know, maybe it's better to spend that time searching for a property we don't yet own. That kind of thing. But yes, I do agree. We're at a point now where why not have one? All the management softwares make it easy on us.
Yep.
And maybe you can, you know, put it in your guidebook or something. But at the end of the day, I'm happy to be in a relationship with Airbnb and VRBO and give them their cut. They absolutely deserve it.
For sure. Do you guys get those requests from guests that are always trying to go around? You know?
Excellent question.
Yeah, and I'm like,
all the time.
no, you know, like this is how you found me, was through these people. Like, no, I'm not giving you my number.
Correct. That's the right answer. That also brings me to the VRBO scam that we see all the time. I'm going to mail you a check. So we do want to point that out. If you're brand new and seeing this before you go live or something, especially when you're new, you go live on VRBO, you get a lot of this spam. It's the same thing. It's the same. Remember, I'm sure Tim knows, all the time on Craigslist with this thing. You know, you're going to have to send a money order to my offshore submarine in the Atlantic Ocean and blah, blah, blah.
But it does sound a lot more real. My English today, man. But
stop that. Yes, it has gotten better. Now they're saying, well, my company's going to pay for this. Will you send me a check? And it's a scamola, and hopefully nobody's smart. You know, our folks are smart enough to not fall for it. But what they're trying to do is they're going to say, well, we sent you. Well, how does it work, Tim? They sent you too much, and you're supposed to mail them a check back or something. I don't know the exact
that's
scam.
what the Craigslist thing was. Is we're going to send you 4 times what you're asking for this thing, whatever. But the VRBO thing, you know, it usually comes across, my company's paying for this, and I need an address to mail a check to. And they're digging for data. So. And
just say no, guys. So if you're new or if you're not familiar with that, it seems to only be VRBO, this scam. Just flag it as spam. There's a flag as spam button on both platforms. You can just flag it and get rid of them, and they'll probably just disappear.
Do they
But
get, they
And
get
anybody
your,
trying to go around, I always push, all payments go through the platform. I don't
100%.
play any games whatsoever. If they're going through the platform, that platform has put a lot of money into getting them there for me. So I'm not going to try and bypass the platform. Just tell them we do this through the platform. If 3% is going to kill us for you, then, probably not the right thing.
we're kind of talking about two different things here. So I do want to clarify. There's the I'm going to mail you a check scam, which we just want to tell them no. And, literally just one word would be fine. No. Because they know that they're, bullshit. They're scamming you. So, and then just flag them as spam. But then there's also the folks that are saying, hey, is there any way I can contact you directly and book off platform? We want to make sure everybody says no to that as well. Just because that person did come to you through the platform, so you owe it to them to take that business. Truth of the matter is, you don't want that person's business anyway, in most cases, because if they're trying to pull that crap, what else are they going to pull? So
Yep.
you do need to screen your guests, guys, no matter what software, what platform you're using. It's just, similar to long-term rental. There does need to be some screening involved. We're just not doing a background check and a credit check. Julie says, I love when payments go through my processor because then I control if they get anything back. Oh, she's talking about off platform again. Julie, stop it. We're talking about platforms today. I wish she would just pop on. But I get it. She's in Vegas. Where were we? Oh yeah, the VRBO scam. We already covered that. And the clear winner on the website and app. I don't think anybody's going to deny that it is Airbnb by a landslide. With some small exceptions, if you prefer an older, kind of an old school, simple website that crashes all the time, then maybe you like VRBO. And then speaking of, along those same lines, the website integrations with the softwares, I think we got a pretty clear winner on that one too. But Tim, talk to me briefly on, the differences there between what Airbnb can do and VRBO.
Yeah, same kind of thing. Airbnb is a lot cleaner. When you link up to your platform management software, you can go directly to your platform management software and edit pretty much everything in your listing, your pictures, your descriptions, all that stuff, and it'll flow all through Airbnb nice and clean. With VRBO, you have to go to VRBO itself and, make tweaks, so you're kind of double doing it. Again, owner res could be different. I'm waiting for Julie to slam me here from Vegas. But that's the way it works with Guesty. You got to go into Guesty and sometimes, you can shut that off in Guesty and just go do it through Airbnb directly if you want. It works either way. But that is kind of the differences with VRBO. You have to go to VRBO manually and do it. So,
and just to clarify, Tim is talking about Guesty for hosts, not Guesty. Two different softwares.
Yeah.
Again, we'll talk about those in a software conversation here in the near future. Now that I'm seeing there's obviously a big need for that call as well, because these topics are very, very similar. Anything else? What did we miss? Anybody have any questions? I don't think there's any questions coming in. I'm switching soon and I'm terrified. Leanne is switching soon. What does that mean? Leanne, what are you switching to or from? Did we miss anything, guys? I don't
was
think
it
so.
you or was it someone who said to get traction on VRBO, you take the plunge of cutting off Airbnb for a few? Like
Good thing. Yes, beautiful. So, she's switching to owner res. not the right call. So yeah, if you find yourself in a situation where you're all Airbnb, which first of all, it's not, you're booked. At the end of the day, if you're booked, you're booked, right? That's why we're here. We're here to get a full calendar. It's you putting asses in the seats. But there are a couple of things you can do. And by the way, this is really unrelated to this subject. You might find a different reason to want to do this. Most management softwares, all of them to my knowledge, are going to have an option to charge more or less on either one of the two or three or five management OTAs that are out there. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you're all Airbnb and you're thinking, maybe I do want to try and get some VRBO, I would encourage that. And you could maybe drop your VRBO to 10% lower than your Airbnb for a little while and try that. You can snooze your Airbnb if you want to. There's several different options as far as your listing status on Airbnb. You could either snooze it Or you could, there's another one on there. I can't remember what it's called, but they're really very similar. I'm not even sure why there's two different options, but I always just use the Snooze if need be. I had one property snoozed for like 3 months because it was nothing but Airbnb, and I'd owned it for quite some time. And I said, I gotta see if I can get some traction over here if I can. And so I snoozed it for a few months and let it catch up. And I do my best to try and keep them 50-50, which I think is obviously the whole point of this call. We do want to encourage everybody to do their best to try and go that direction. But of course, again, at the end of the day, if you're booked, you're booked. And Tim, let's talk about customer service. We forgot to mention that. Like, who has better customer service, or is there an argument there either way?
For me, that leans VRBO. Airbnb, they tend to lean towards guests. If a guest claims something, Airbnb is typically going with them, and you got to kind of deal with the aftermath. Where VRBO they're more 50-50, I'd say. They just kind of, I don't want to say they don't care, because they absolutely care, but it's like, if a guest complains about something, they'll call you up and say, hey, this guest is complaining about this. That's kind of, and then you just kind of talk it through it,
Yeah, they're like a mediator, they're middle.
Yeah. It's just more of they work through the problem instead of just immediately siding with one side and shutting you off or putting you under investigation or whatever. VRBO is just a little more lax, isn't the right word, just calmer there, I guess, maybe.
Mutual, a little more mutual.
Mutual, yeah.
Zeke, what's your customer service? Being a guy that's primarily Airbnb at this point.
I would lean towards VRBO. I've only had a few interactions with VRBO customer service, but Airbnb, it's like every time you call, you're getting a different rep, and some of them don't even know what's going on. It seems like, I definitely lean towards VRBO.
They're not, I think Airbnb is not as consistent. You could call 5 different times. It's like talking to the IRS. You call 5 different times, you get 5 different answers. And
Yeah.
they don't have like I don't think they have a across the board rule book or system, I guess you'd say. It's kind of just luck of the draw.
I did have a bed bug guest though, and Airbnb was actually really helpful. I was kind of surprised, but I was proactive about taking care of that, so.
Well, what do you mean? We've all been there, and it's horrible. I'm still going through one right now that is just killing me, honestly. But what happened, and how did it go?
I had a guest that stayed the entire stay. Messaged me, I don't know, probably 2 days after she had gotten home, and said that I had bed bugs, and she immediately asked for a refund. So I called Airbnb pretty much right away. Told them that I'll send somebody out there. Airbnb told me just to ignore that guest. Once I had verification that I did not have bed bugs, I'll let Airbnb know. And
so wait a minute, hold on. In other words, in this situation, you felt that this was not true?
I thought so. Yeah,
Okay.
I was getting some vibes from this lady that she was just trying to get a full refund. And it ended up not being true. I sent
Oh, really? So what happened? You sent a professional over there, and what happened?
I got a clear letter from the pest control company, let Airbnb know, I sent that over to them, and they just told me to not respond to that guest.
So it was basically a scam from the get-go, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
It's not as bad as your situation.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but thank you.
But you made a good point. The first thing you do is to call them.
I think so. Some people disagree. Some people try to go around, and I think in my experience, if you don't get them involved and something happens where the guest gets them involved, you're in way bigger trouble than if you didn't just get them involved to begin with. And so I think it
may not always turn out your way, but at least you were proactive, in my opinion. I like
upfront, honest. I'm running a legit property here. That's a really nice house. This is not some dump, and Airbnb or VRBO, they don't know the difference. They don't know that the guy that called before you might have been renting the closet on their cousin's, or the bed of their cousin's truck, and so that you call in with this beautiful $2 million home or whatever, they don't know. They think that you might be just running some dump. So you kind of need to paint that picture on your behalf, and I think it's good to call in and be honest about that up front. So. Man, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but could have been worse, I suppose. You could have actually had them.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
But I would say with your company, though, always try to keep a track record or document speaking with them because
Maybe we should do an entire bed bug call one time, Luke.
We should. It seems to be a hot topic lately.
It's not fun.
and
A bunch of bed
it's
bugs.
not fun. And the thing is that for whatever reason, these guests think that we did it on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Or I don't know what they think. Yeah. How do I know you didn't bring them, dude? You know?
I wouldn't be happy as a guest. I wouldn't be happy. That's for sure.
Well, of course not.
Yeah. But they're like bugs. They come from wherever.
If there's one thing I've learned about bugs, and this goes, we need this is a whole nother call here, but we're on it. So let's keep going. You don't know where they came from. There's no way to know. And if you start pointing fingers at your cleaner or this guest or that guest, it's not going to get you anywhere.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
where they came from. You just got to deal with it. Move
Just
on.
get them
just
taken
deal with
care
it.
of and move on. I mean, these things are nasty, and it's unfortunate, but it's part of the business. I mean, you leave your house, there's a risk. It's just like COVID. You can't go to Walmart and say that guy over there gave me COVID. It just doesn't work like that. Anyway, but back to the customer service, I do want to point out that there's some good points have been made here, but I think as a good host, it is our job to know, even more so than that person on the other end of the phone, because they, like you said, they may have just started last week. We need to know the platform in and out. And the only way to get to know it is to have more and more experience and to call and call and call and spend time calling in. The more you call and ask questions and learn these platforms and how they operate and the actual policy and procedure. Let me put it this way. You could call in and somebody says, oh yeah, we're going to handle it this way. Either one of these platforms, we're going to handle it this way. You need to know how it's supposed to be handled before you even get to that point, so that when that person says we're going to handle it this way, if you know they're wrong, you just hang up and call back and get the person that handles it the right way. Because that's our gig, man. That's our job as hosts. We need to be as better than everybody else and knowledgeable.
And that said, there's a lot of upstream stuff you can do there. There's a ton of, you can get and read policies and procedures on both these platforms. They have tons of information out there. You can go
Patient.
much. Yep.
You
It's
gotta
out
be-
there. Yeah, you don't even have to call, but I do find that calling helps your algorithm. So I like to, when I first started, man, I call and ask every stupid question on the planet just to get to know, like, well, how does this work? And you might get a different answer, so you got to call back and get the average answer of the 16 answers to know which one is the real answer. And I'm not mad at them. I'm really not mad at Airbnb and VRBO for having to do all that work, because they're really only getting a small cut. And it is our job to know how to run our business, so.
They do have to, there are so many out there that aren't hosts that aren't doing a great job or care the way that we are. And
Yeah.
so they do need to protect the guests from people like that.
That's a great point, Holly.
100%.
And
100%. It's just like similar to what I just mentioned a minute ago. But yeah, Airbnb doesn't know that I'm not a crappy host. So, they're protecting. It's not an easy gig for them. I can't imagine what these guys have to go through as a business to play both sides of this coin, And really, we just want to encourage everybody to be happy and have a good time on their vacation and not tear up a house and be respectful all the way, all around. The host. It's one thing I've learned over the years is it's just really just better to just be nice,
yeah.
Kill them with kindness, even in a bad situation, and hope to God you don't get any bad situations. Anybody else have anything in closing? Any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat, so unless anybody has anything, we can say goodbye. Tim, you got anything?
No, I think that was a good chat.
All right, wonderful. Well, we love all the platforms. I think was what we're getting at. No clear cut, one over the other. But I think the best thing to take away from the call is that it's probably not a good idea to be stuck with just one,
Right.
And it's easy to fall into that. So do your best as a host and as a property owner and property manager to rent your house. And in order to do that, you're going to need both of them. Rent the house, buy the house, rent the house, repeat. I think some great, brilliant man came out with a term out there called BRRRR at one point, with a couple other R's thrown in there, but same principles, man. So anyway, thanks everybody. Really enjoyed it, and hope we could help some folks out there in short-term rental world, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank
Have a
you.
good afternoon.
Bye.